I'm going to talk about The Witcher Season 3 and go back a little bit and just talk about my general thoughts on Netflix's version of The Witcher. Okay, so straight into it, Season 3 of The Witcher on Netflix. I think this was a vast improvement over Season 2. I don't think I talked about it on a video anywhere, but I was really disappointed with Season 2. I really enjoyed Season 1. I have read all the books. I have played The Witcher 3. I would class myself as quite a big fan of The Witcher series in general. But for me, Season 2 was just a big letdown. They veered too far away from the source material. There was weird writing decisions. There was poor acting decisions. There was all sorts of things all over the place that I just didn't really enjoy. And I felt it was quite a big drop off from Season 1. I'm glad to say Season 3 brought me back in quite a bit. I really enjoyed Season 3 for the most part. I still think it had some weird decisions. I still think it has some strange elements of writing, decision making, and things where it still veers away from the books, and I don't really understand why. But overall, I stand by this is an improvement, and if you like The Witcher, you probably will have enjoyed Season 3 on Netflix. To start on the positives, because I like to try and be positive about stuff, the overall rating in this season was a lot stronger than in Season 2, and I don't think that's in any small part because it chooses to stick closer to the source material of the books. Look, I know this is a hotly debated topic online. There's been a lot of discourse around The Witcher, around Henry Cavill's exit, why he's gone. There's a lot of really toxic stuff around did he or did he not hate the writers? Did he hate the way it was being done? Is that why he's left, etc, etc, etc. In all honesty, the answer is 99% no. He left because he was being offered a big contract to do Superman, and then that fell through. That seems to be the obvious logical conclusion. Is it possible he wasn't particularly happy with the way that some of the stuff was being written and handled on the show? Yes, 100%. Does an actor of his caliber and his level throw away a Netflix contract because of that? Probably not. I think sometimes you have to kind of pull yourself back into the real world and think, would an actor be likely to make that decision just based on that? I think probably not. I think it was probably much more to do with the other factors at play. Either way, I think Henry Cavill's third season is his strongest, so I think that's a nice send-off for him as an actor. The final couple of episodes of this season have some of his best work in them. I think he once again shows his excellent physical presence in fight choreography. He's clearly very good at it. You can tell it's him. It's one of those things where it's always subtle, but you can tell when it's not a stunt double. It just adds something extra. You can have the camera a lot closer. You can linger on close-ups of the face during the fight scenes. It does make a difference, and you can tell that he's very involved in that stuff. I think his emotional acting in this season at times was decent as well. I'm not on this Henry Cavill is amazing hype train. I think he's a bit wooden, and I think whilst he works very well as Geralt, because that's kind of what his character is, I don't think Henry Cavill has much range, and I don't think he will go on to play any really dramatic, amazing characters going forwards. So in that regard, it is a shame to lose him from this franchise where he does seem to fit so well into the character. Whilst there are times in the books that Geralt absolutely gets a bit more introspective and gets involved in politics and stuff like that, he is always on the outside. That is always the point of the character. As comes up in Season 3, he wants to stay neutral. He just wants to do his own tasks and follow his own missions. But the whole point of the books going forward from this point onwards is that he kind of has to choose sides and get involved because of obviously what's happening with Ciri. Moving on to Ciri, I think Freya Allan is maturing massively in this role. I think when she was cast, she was naturally a child, and therefore this was one of her first roles of any note. And I did think she was a little bit wooden again and didn't really have great range, but you can accept that and forgive that for obviously someone that is literally a child. But I think she is growing into this show, and I think as the series kind of moves forward and she, spoilers, kind of ends up being the main character more than Geralt, I think this will suit, as I think she is coming into the role and developing some pretty decent acting skills. Moving on to other characters, Anya Travolta again is great as Yennefer. I think she was brilliant in casting, and there's really no notes. I think she plays the character perfectly. But we are now at a point in the series where there are plenty of different characters, and I think for the most part, most of them are doing their roles well. Similar to Season 1 and 2, action choreography is a bit up and down in this show. There are some scenes like Geralt's fight scene towards the end of the season, which I think are handled really well. And then there are some other scenes where it just seems a bit haphazard. I'm not really sure what's going on. And one of the other big fight scenes in episode 6 kind of has that, where it's a bit chaotic. And yes, it's meant to be, but it's also filmed in a way, then choreographed in a way that just doesn't really show you that much of anything. Again, I think this is a little bit of a shame considering how much action and how many great fight scenes there are in the books. My last positive note is that actually I think this season leaves off in a great place. That's going to sound really ironic with Henry Cavill's departure, leaving this weird dark shadow over the show, and people are not really sure, in what capacity it's going to come next. Obviously, we know we've got Liam Hemsworth coming into the role, but no one really knows if Netflix is going to be able to sustain the popularity around the show. I think statistically there's already been a drop-off. I think Season 3 is doing worse than Season 1 and 2. So I think potentially some fans are already kind of getting ready for Henry Cavill's exit by potentially not watching the show. I know just in my circle of friends, for example, that people do seem a little bit less interested this time around. And unfortunately, I think that is a trend that will probably continue. The talk is that Season 4 and 5 are being shot back to back, which I think is an excellent decision. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Netflix kind of tries to rush to the completion of this story now. I think we could definitely finish off most of the rest of the book series in Season 4 and 5. And I think given its potential waning popularity, that might be a good decision. I know I mentioned it at the start and I don't really want to harp on it because a lot of YouTubers doing this and it's extremely negative. But the show is still in a position where it's having to kind of fight back against what it's written in the past. We have the first episode of this season, which essentially just rewrites what happened in season 2 or tries to get past it and get around it. And you can't help but be left thinking, if you just hadn't made that writing decision in season 2, we wouldn't have to have this kind of forced storyline in season 3. That's all a real shame. And when you are adapting source material that's very popular and it's very well written in the first place, I just don't really understand why that needed to be done. I can't remember if I've talked about it anywhere publicly, but I had a massive gripe with season 2, which was that they changed composer. They went from Sonia Belousova, who was fantastic in season 1 and wrote so many themes and bits of music that were really, really interesting for season 1. I think season 1 had a really, really unique sort of soundscape and musical theme. I genuinely believe it was one of the things that kind of made it very popular very quickly and drew people in. People could instantly associate that sound and those instruments and that kind of style of music with The Witcher. It helped create a unique world around the show. And then for whatever reason that was dropped for season 2 for something a lot more generic. I have no idea why. To this day it still bugs me. Season 3 made a sensible choice to actually pull a lot of season 1's themes back in. It is still written by the composer from season 2, but they pulled a lot more music from season 1, and I think this again just helps create kind of that tone from season 1, which was missing in season 2. So yeah, overall, we have a very up and down trajectory for this show so far. I don't even want to talk about Blood Origins, the spin-off, because it was absolutely awful and completely unnecessary. We are apparently getting a spin-off based on the rats, which were introduced in the final episode of this season. Now, I think the best thing they could do would be to use that as a gap between the next season, fill out Ciri's story with the rats at this point in the timeline before season 4, and then kind of focus on Geralt for a bit. I think that would give Liam Hemsworth a chance to really kind of settle into the role. I think that would be sensible. However, the talk is that the rats is going to be a prequel to the rats, and we're going to kind of find out who they were before they met Ciri, and again, sounds like an awful idea to me. I don't know what Netflix is doing. So in summary, I don't like to be negative. I thought season 3 was a big improvement on season 2. Unfortunately, I think season 2 was a massive drop off from season 1, so we're kind of back around season 1 levels maybe. It is overall a shame that the show is at this level, because I think the source material, and especially with the hype around the Witcher 3 game, this could have been so much more. This really could have and probably should have been something to rival Game of Thrones and kind of more in that vein. And look, clearly the quality just isn't quite there. But I still think this is a fun show. It's worth watching. It's got decent CGI, decent action, decent drama, and I enjoyed season 3 quite a lot. No idea what I'm going to talk about next time, so I'll see you there.